I thought my wedding day would be the happiest day of my life. I was wrong. It was the day I realized I never really had a family at all. Growing up, I always knew Madison was the golden child. She was 3 years younger than me, with those perfect blonde curls that caught sunlight like spun gold, and this infectious laugh that made everyone in the room turn and smile. I was Emma, the reliable one. The one with mousy brown hair who got decent grades, worked part-time jobs since I was 16, and never caused any trouble. While Madison got piano lessons and dance classes, I got a job at the local grocery store to help pay for her activities. I told myself it was normal. Younger siblings needed more attention, right? That's what Mom always said when I questioned why Madison got a brand new car for her 16th birthday while I was still riding the bus to my job at 17. Emma, honey, you're so responsible. You don't need us fussing over you like Madison does. By the time I graduated high school, I was essentially funding half of our family's lifestyle. Madison's competition fees, her designer clothes for school events, even groceries when Dad's construction work slowed down in winter. I worked 40 hours a week while taking community college classes, and somehow I convinced myself this was just what big sisters did. The pattern continued through my 20s. When Madison got into state university, guess who took out additional student loans to help cover her dorm costs? When she wanted to study abroad in Italy for a semester, guess who picked up extra shifts to send her spending money? Every milestone of hers required a sacrifice from me, and every time I gave it willingly because that's what family does, right? I met David at my second job, waiting tables at a family restaurant downtown. He was a regular customer, always polite, always left good tips, and one Thursday evening he finally asked if I'd like to get coffee sometime. David was everything I didn't know I was looking for. Stable, kind, and he actually listened when I talked. He noticed things about me that my own family never seemed to see. When David proposed after 2 years of dating, I was over the moon. Finally, something in my life was just about me. Something good and pure and mine. We planned a small but beautiful wedding at the Botanical Gardens. Nothing too expensive because we were saving for a house, but meaningful. I was so excited to walk down the aisle toward my future husband, surrounded by everyone I loved. That's when Madison dropped her bombshell. It was a Tuesday evening in March, exactly 6 weeks before my May wedding. I had just finished addressing the last batch of invitations when my phone rang. Madison's voice was practically vibrating with excitement. "Emma! Oh my God, you'll never guess what happened! Trevor proposed! Can you believe it? He proposed!" Trevor was Madison's boyfriend of 8 months, some finance guy she'd met at a networking event. Nice enough, I supposed, though I'd only met him twice. "That's wonderful, Madison," I said, genuinely happy for her despite the exhaustion in my voice. "When did this happen?" "Tonight, like an hour ago." "And Emma, here's the thing. His parents want to throw us this huge engagement party. They're talking about renting out the country club, getting a string quartet, the works. His dad knows all these important people in the city, and they want to introduce me properly to everyone." I felt a small knot forming in my stomach. "That sounds amazing. When are you thinking of having it?" "Well, that's the thing. Trevor's dad can only get the country club on one date in the next 2 months because of their schedule. It's the same day as your wedding." The silence stretched between us for what felt like an eternity. I stared at my freshly addressed wedding invitations spread across the kitchen table, my careful handwriting spelling out, "Emma and David request the pleasure of your company" on each one. "Madison, that's my wedding day." I know, and I feel terrible about it. But Emma, this is such a huge opportunity for us. Trevor's family has connections that could change our entire future. His dad's already talking about getting Trevor a position at his firm, and you know how important networking is in finance. "But it's my wedding day," I repeated, my voice smaller now. "Look, I haven't said yes yet. I wanted to talk to you first. But Emma, you have to understand, this isn't just a party. This is about my entire future. Trevor's family has money, real money. His mom was talking about flying in orchids from Thailand for the centerpieces. The guest list is going to be like a who's who of the city's elite. And my wedding isn't important enough to work around? That's not what I'm saying. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm just saying that you'll have other opportunities to celebrate with family. You and David could always have an anniversary party later or renew your vows or something. But this chance for me and Trevor, this is once in a lifetime. I closed my eyes and tried to count to 10 like David always told me to do when my family frustrated me. Madison, I've been planning this wedding for 8 months. The invitations are literally sitting in front of me, ready to be mailed tomorrow. But you haven't mailed them yet, right? So technically you could still change the date. The audacity of it took my breath away. Change my wedding date so you can have an engagement party? Don't say it like that. You're making it sound petty. This is about so much more than just a party, Emma. This is about my future, my happiness. Don't you want me to be happy? There it was, the guilt card that had worked on me for 28 years. Don't you want Madison to be happy? Don't you want what's best for the family? Don't you care about your sister? Of course I want you to be happy, but Madison, this is my wedding, my one wedding day. Surely Trevor's family can find another date. I already asked. Trevor said his dad was very specific about this being the only date that works with their social calendar. Some judge they know is going to be there, and a state senator, and this could really open doors for Trevor's career. I felt the familiar weight settling on my shoulders, the same feeling I'd carried since childhood whenever Madison needed something, and I was expected to step aside and make room for her happiness. What does Mom say about this? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Madison's voice brightened. Oh, she's so excited. She thinks it's amazing that I'm marrying into such an established family. She was practically crying with joy when I told her about the country club and the guest list. You know how she's always worried about our family's reputation in town. Our family's reputation. As if my marrying David, a decent man with a steady job who treated me like I mattered, somehow reflected poorly on us. But Madison marrying money? That was worth celebrating. Has anyone asked what I think about this? I said quietly. Well, that's why I'm calling you now. I wanted to get your blessing before I tell Trevor's family yes. My blessing to schedule your engagement party on my wedding day. Emma, please don't be like this. You know I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Can't you just be happy for me? This is the biggest thing that's ever happened to me. I wanted to scream that my wedding was the biggest thing that had ever happened to me, but I could already feel myself starting to cave. 28 years of being the understanding one, the flexible one, the one who made sacrifices so Madison could shine. What if I moved my wedding to the following weekend? I heard myself saying, hating the words as they came out of my mouth. Oh, Emma, you're the best sister ever. I knew you'd understand. And hey, maybe this way you'll have time to lose those last few pounds before the wedding. You mentioned you were stressed about fitting into your dress. I hadn't mentioned anything about my weight or my dress, but Madison had a way of remembering things I'd never said and forgetting things I had. After I hung up, I sat staring at those wedding invitations for an hour. David found me there when he got home from work, still in my pajamas, surrounded by envelopes I couldn't bring myself to address with a new date. What's wrong? He asked immediately, sitting down beside me and pulling me into his arms. When I told him what Madison had asked, David was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Emma, you know you don't have to change our wedding date, right? This is our day. We planned it first. We sent save the dates months ago, and our families have known about this date since we got engaged. But if I don't change it, my whole family will miss our wedding. And if you do change it, you're teaching them that your happiness will always come second to Madison's. David had a way of cutting straight to the heart of things that was both helpful and terrifying. Because he was right, and I knew he was right, but I also knew that if I didn't change the date, I'd be the selfish sister who ruined Madison's big opportunity. I'd be the one who couldn't be happy for her sister's good fortune. In the end, I kept our original date. I told Madison I was sorry, but David and I had already put deposits down that we couldn't get back, and our guests had already made plans. I suggested she ask Trevor's family about alternative dates, maybe explaining that her sister's wedding was the same day. Madison's response was immediate and icy. Well, I guess I know where I stand in your priorities. The next few weeks were tense. Family dinners became awkward affairs where Madison would make pointed comments about loyalty and family bonds, while Mom tried to play peacekeeper by suggesting maybe everyone could attend both events. The wedding is at 2, and the engagement party doesn't start until 6. Maybe we could make both work. But I could see the writing on the wall. Madison had already started talking about how hurt she was that I wouldn't move my wedding date for her happiness. She painted herself as the wounded party, the sister whose own family wouldn't support her when she needed them most. Dad, as usual, stayed out of the conflict entirely. He had a remarkable ability to disappear into his workshop whenever family drama erupted, emerging only when the dust had settled and he could pretend nothing had happened. My best friend Jenna initially seemed supportive. "That's ridiculous," she said when I told her about Madison's request. "You can't just move a wedding because someone else wants to have a party the same day. What's next? Are you supposed to reschedule your anniversary every year if Madison wants to have a birthday party?" But as the weeks went on and Madison's campaign of hurt feelings intensified, I noticed Jenna getting quieter about the subject. When I brought it up, she'd change the topic or make vague comments about how complicated family situations could be. 3 weeks before the wedding, Madison called me in tears. "Emma, I need you to know that I never wanted it to be like this. I love you and I want you to be happy, but I also can't pass up this opportunity. Trevor's family has been so generous, and they're expecting me to prioritize this engagement party. His mother specifically mentioned how important it is that I show proper respect for their family traditions." "What are you saying, Madison?" "I'm saying that I have to choose Trevor's family. I'm going to be a part of their family now, and I can't start that relationship by telling them my sister's wedding is more important than their son's engagement celebration." "So you're not coming to my wedding?" "I want to, Emma, I really do. But I can't risk damaging my relationship with Trevor's family before we're even married. You understand, right? You know I love you." I understood that Madison was choosing money and social status over her sister's wedding day. I understood that 28 years of putting Madison first had taught her that Emma would always be there to understand, to sacrifice, to step aside when something better came along. "What about Mom and Dad? What about Jenna?" Madison was quiet for a moment. "I think they're all planning to come to the engagement party too. Trevor's family specifically invited them when they heard they were my family. His parents are very big on family unity." Family unity. The irony was so thick I could taste it. That night, David held me while I cried. Not the delicate tears of a stressed bride, but the deep, body-shaking sobs of someone who was finally seeing her family clearly for the first time. "We can postpone," David said quietly. "If having your family there means that much to you, we can postpone and try to find another date that works for everyone." But I was done postponing my life for Madison's convenience. I was done being the understanding sister, the flexible one, the one who made room for everyone else's happiness. "No," I said, and my voice was steadier than I'd expected. "We're getting married on May 15th, just like we planned. And if my family chooses not to be there, that's their choice to live with." The morning of my wedding dawned bright and beautiful. David and I had decided to get ready at the venue, and as I sat in the small bridal suite having my hair and makeup done, I kept checking my phone. Part of me still believed that someone from my family would come to their senses and show up. The makeup artist noticed me checking my phone for the 10th time in an hour. "Nervous about something, honey?" "Just hoping some last-minute guests might change their minds," I said, trying to keep my voice light. My wedding dress fit perfectly, a simple but elegant A-line gown that made me feel beautiful in a way I'd never experienced before. David's sister had flown in from Oregon to be my maid of honor, along with 2 college friends who'd driven down from Chicago. It wasn't the large bridal party I'd originally imagined, but these women had rearranged their lives to be here for me. As I walked toward the ceremony space, I could see David waiting at the altar, looking handsome and nervous in his navy suit. His parents were in the front row, beaming with pride, along with his grandmother who'd insisted on coming despite being 86 and having to use a walker. The seats reserved for my family were empty. I had left spaces for 6 people: Mom, Dad, Madison, Jenna, my Aunt Carol, and my cousin Mike. 6 empty chairs with white ribbons tied to them, like ghosts of the family I'd thought I had. David's eyes found mine as I started down the aisle, and the love and support I saw there helped me keep walking. This man had seen me through the worst parts of my family dysfunction and loved me anyway. He was choosing me, fully and completely, on a day when my own blood relatives had chosen a networking opportunity instead. The ceremony was beautiful. Our officiant, a friend of David's family, had worked with us to write vows that felt authentic and meaningful. When David promised to always choose me, to always make me a priority in his life, I felt the truth of those words settling into the places where my family's neglect had left scars. Our guests were engaged and joyful, laughing at the right moments and wiping their eyes during the emotional parts. David's cousin played acoustic guitar, and his aunt read a poem about love that had been passed down in their family for generations. It felt like being welcomed into something real and lasting. The reception was held in the same botanical garden, under a canopy of string lights that twinkled like stars. David and I had our first dance to At Last by Etta James, and as he spun me around the dance floor, I felt genuinely happy for the first time in months. David's family had embraced me completely. His mother had insisted I call her Mom from the day we got engaged, and she meant it in a way that felt natural and warm. His father had walked me down the aisle when I mentioned that my own father wouldn't be there, and he'd done it with such grace and dignity that it felt like an honor rather than a consolation prize. We were just finishing dinner when David's best man stood up to give his toast. He talked about how David had always been the guy who showed up, who kept his promises, who treated people with respect and kindness. "And now he's found someone who does the same," he said, raising his glass in my direction. "Emma, welcome to a family that will never take you for granted." The applause was warm and genuine, and I felt tears pricking my eyes. This was what family was supposed to feel like. This celebration of love and commitment, this gathering of people who had made the effort to be here for an important moment. David and I were cutting our cake when my phone, tucked away in the small purse his sister was holding for me, started buzzing. At first, I ignored it. This was our moment, our celebration, and I wasn't going to let anything interrupt it. But the buzzing continued. And continued. David's sister quietly approached us during a lull in the festivities. "Emma, your phone has been going off constantly for the last 10 minutes. It might be important." I glanced at David, who nodded. "Go ahead and check. I'll keep cutting cake for everyone." When I looked at my phone, my stomach dropped. 52 missed calls. All from Mom, with a handful from Dad mixed in. The most recent text message, sent just 3 minutes ago, made my blood run cold. "We need to talk. Now." I stared at the screen, my hands starting to shake. What could possibly be so urgent that my mother, who had chosen not to attend my wedding, was now calling me with such apparent desperation? David appeared at my side immediately. "What's wrong?" I showed him the phone and his jaw tightened. "What do you want to do?" Around us, our wedding reception continued. David's grandmother was telling stories to a table of delighted guests. His cousins were taking turns spinning the flower girl on the dance floor. Our photographer was capturing candid moments of joy and laughter. This was supposed to be our night, our celebration, our beginning. But 52 missed calls felt like an emergency, even coming from a family that had just proven they didn't consider me a priority. "I should probably call her back," I said quietly. David nodded, though I could see the frustration in his eyes. Not at me, but at the situation. At a family that could ignore me all day and then demand my immediate attention when it was convenient for them. "Do you want privacy?" he asked. I looked around at our beautiful reception, at the people who had shown up for us, at the life we were celebrating. Whatever crisis had prompted 52 phone calls from my mother, it was about to intrude on the happiest day of my life. "No," I said finally. "Whatever this is, we'll handle it together." I hit the callback button and Mom answered on the first ring. "Emma, thank God. Where have you been? I've been calling for hours." "I've been at my wedding reception, Mom. You know, the wedding you chose not to attend." There was a pause, and I could hear voices in the background. Loud voices that sounded upset. "Emma, we have a problem. A big problem. Can you come home right now?" "I'm at my wedding reception." I know, but this is important." More important than, look, just come home. Please, we need you. The familiar refrain, we need you, Emma. Drop everything and fix our problems, Emma. Your life can wait, Emma. But this time, something in Mom's voice was different. There was a desperation there that I'd never heard before, a panic that seemed genuine rather than manipulative. What's wrong? I asked. Not over the phone. Just come home. And Emma? You might want to bring David. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone while the sounds of my wedding reception continued around me like nothing had happened. David and I arrived at my childhood home 45 minutes later, still in our wedding attire. I hadn't wanted to leave our reception, but something in Mom's voice had convinced me this wasn't just another Madison-created crisis that required my immediate attention and sacrifice. The first thing I noticed was Jenna's car in the driveway, along with several other vehicles I didn't recognize. Through the front windows, I could see people moving around inside, and the energy felt chaotic rather than celebratory. Are you sure about this? David asked as we sat in his car for a moment, both of us staring at the house where I'd grown up feeling like a second-class citizen. No, I admitted, but we're here now. Mom opened the front door before we could even knock, and I was shocked by her appearance. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, and she was still wearing the expensive navy dress she'd bought specifically for Madison's engagement party. The dress that had been more important than witnessing her eldest daughter's wedding. Emma, thank God you're here, she said, reaching for me like I was a life preserver in stormy seas. I stepped back, not ready for physical comfort from someone who had spent the day celebrating my sister's engagement instead of my marriage. What's going on, Mom? Behind her, I could see into the living room where Madison was sitting on the couch, sobbing into her hands. Trevor was pacing by the window, his face red with anger, while Dad sat in his recliner looking like he'd aged 10 years since I'd last seen him. Jenna was perched on the edge of the coffee table looking uncomfortable and guilty. It's Madison, Mom said, her voice breaking. Trevor called off the engagement, tonight, in front of everyone at the party. I felt David's hand settle on my lower back, a steady, grounding presence as I processed this information. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Karma had come for Madison faster than I'd ever imagined. But a larger part of me just felt tired. Even in crisis, even in what should have been a moment of reckoning, I was the one being called to fix things. What happened? I asked, though I wasn't sure I really wanted to know. Can we just come inside first? Mom pleaded. The neighbors are already talking. The neighbors, of course. Even now, it was about appearances and what other people might think. We stepped inside, and the scene was even more dramatic up close. Madison's carefully styled hair was a mess, her designer engagement party dress was stained with mascara tears, and the living room looked like a tornado had hit it. There were gift boxes scattered around, presumably engagement presents that would now need to be returned. Trevor looked up when we entered, and his expression was a mixture of embarrassment and defiance. Emma, he said stiffly, congratulations on your wedding. I'm sorry we missed it. The irony of receiving wedding congratulations from the man whose engagement party had prevented my family from attending my wedding wasn't lost on me. Thank you, I said carefully. What happened tonight? Trevor's jaw tightened. What happened is that I found out some very interesting information about your family's financial situation. Information that Madison apparently forgot to mention during our entire relationship. Madison looked up from her hands, her face blotchy and desperate. Trevor, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, Trevor shot back. You lied to me, Madison. About everything. Your family's social status, your financial background, even your own education. I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean? Trevor turned to me, and his expression was almost apologetic. I mean that someone at the engagement party tonight recognized your father as the contractor who's been doing day labor for minimum wage because his construction business went under 3 years ago. And when I asked Madison about it, the whole house of cards came tumbling down. Dad's face had gone gray, and he wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Mom was wringing her hands like she was trying to physically squeeze a solution out of thin air. Madison told me her family owned a successful construction company. Trevor continued. She said her father had contracts all over the city, that your family was well established in the community. She even showed me pictures of houses she claimed he'd built. Those were houses he worked on, Madison said desperately. As part of construction crews. I never said he owned the company that built them. You heavily implied it, Trevor said coldly. Just like you heavily implied that you graduated from State University when you actually dropped out after 2 semesters. Just like you let me believe that your family had money when they're apparently living paycheck to paycheck. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around the room at my family, really looked at them, and for the first time, I saw the truth behind the facade Madison had been so desperate to maintain. The furniture was older than I'd remembered, with strategic throw pillows covering worn spots on the couch. The paint on the walls was faded, and there were water stains on the ceiling that hadn't been fixed. This wasn't the home of a successful, established family. This was the home of people struggling to maintain appearances while drowning in reality. How long has Dad been out of work? I asked quietly. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. The business failed 2 years ago. He's been picking up whatever construction work he can find, but it's not steady. We've been living on credit cards mostly. And my money, I said, the pieces finally clicking into place. All those times you needed help with Madison's school expenses or car repairs or emergency bills, you weren't helping Madison achieve her dreams. You were keeping the family afloat. Mom started crying then, the kind of desperate tears that come when secrets are finally exposed. We didn't know what else to do, Emma. You were always so responsible, so capable. We knew we could count on you. You were using me, I said, and it wasn't a question. We were surviving. Dad spoke up for the first time, his voice rough with shame. And we figured when Madison married Trevor, when she married into his family's money, everything would be okay. She could help us then. So you sacrificed Emma's happiness and financial stability for Madison's chance at marrying money? David said, speaking for the first time since we'd arrived. His voice was calm, but I could hear the controlled anger underneath. You don't understand, Madison said, turning to face us. Trevor's family has everything. Real money, real connections, real stability. If I could have married into that family, I could have taken care of everyone. I could have fixed everything. By lying, I pointed out. By doing whatever it took. Madison's voice rose to nearly a shout. Do you think I wanted to pretend to be someone I'm not? Do you think I enjoyed living a lie for 8 months? I did it for this family. You did it for yourself, I said quietly. And you expected me to keep funding it indefinitely. Trevor cleared his throat. There's more. We all turned to look at him, and his expression was grim. My parents didn't just invite Madison's family to the engagement party out of politeness. They did some research. They wanted to make sure they were welcoming the right kind of people into their social circle. What kind of research? David asked. Financial background checks, social media deep dives, references from country club members who might know the family, standard due diligence for their social circle. Mom's face went white. What did they find? They found that Madison's family has been living beyond their means for years. They found debt records, foreclosure notices that were barely avoided, and a pattern of financial instability going back half a decade. They also found, Trevor continued, looking directly at me, that Emma has been the one keeping this family afloat. Bank records showing regular transfers from your account to theirs, loan applications where you co-signed for family expenses, and employment records showing you've been working multiple jobs for years. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. They investigated my finances? When they couldn't find any evidence of your family's supposed wealth, they started looking for where the money was actually coming from. Emma, my parents know exactly how much you've been giving your family every month. They know about the car payment you took over when Madison couldn't afford it, the credit card debt you helped pay down, even the money you sent when your dad's tools were stolen from his truck. That's illegal, David said sharply. They can't just investigate people's private financial information. Trevor shrugged. When you have the right connections and enough money, privacy laws become more like suggestions. My father knows people who know people. The point is, Trevor said, turning back to Madison, you're not just from a different social class than you pretended. You're from a family that's been systematically exploiting your sister's good nature and work ethic to maintain a lifestyle you can't afford. My parents see that as a character issue, Madison. A big one. Madison was crying again, but these tears seemed different, less desperate, more angry. So that's it, she said. 8 months together, and you're going to throw it all away because my family doesn't have as much money as you thought. I'm throwing it away because you lied to me about who you are, Trevor replied. And because watching how your family treated Emma tonight showed me exactly what kind of person you really are. What do you mean? I asked. Trevor looked at me with something that might have been respect. I mean that when my parents brought up Emma's sacrifices for your family, Madison's response was to get angry that Emma hadn't done more. She actually suggested that if Emma really cared about family, she would have moved her wedding date so everyone could attend the engagement party. The room went silent again. Even Jenna, who had been trying to disappear into the furniture, looked shocked. You said that? I asked Madison. Tonight? At your engagement party. Madison's defiance cracked slightly. I was emotional. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. How did you mean it? I thought that if you really wanted the family there, you would have been more flexible about the date. It's not like you couldn't have changed it. Madison, Mom said weakly, that's not… No, let her finish, I said. I want to hear this. Madison stood up, her designer dress wrinkled and stained, her perfect engagement party look destroyed. But there was still that familiar entitlement in her posture, that expectation that everyone would eventually see things her way. Fine, you want honesty? Here's honesty. I've been trying to save this family for years. Yes, I lied to Trevor about some things, but I was trying to create opportunities for all of us. If I could have married into his family, we would have been set. Mom and Dad could have stopped worrying about money. You could have stopped working so much. Everyone would have been better off. And all it required was me continuing to fund your lifestyle while you found a rich husband, I said. You make it sound so calculating. Wasn't it? Madison's composure finally cracked completely. Yes, okay? Yes, it was calculating, because someone in this family had to be. Someone had to think about the future, about getting us out of this mess. And it sure wasn't going to be you with your little job and your middle-class boyfriend and your perfectly modest life. The words hung in the air like a slap. David's hand found mine, and I squeezed it gratefully. My middle-class boyfriend who treats me like I matter, I said quietly. My modest life where I'm actually happy. My job that I work because I'm good at it, not because I'm desperately trying to maintain appearances. Happy? Madison laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. Emma, you've been miserable for years, working constantly, never having any fun, always stressed about money. At least I was trying to change that for all of us. I was miserable because I was supporting an entire family on my salary while trying to build my own life. I was stressed about money because every time I saved up for something I wanted, there was another family emergency that required my financial help. Because we needed you. Because you used me. The words came out louder than I'd intended, and everyone in the room flinched. For 10 years, Madison, you've been living a lifestyle funded by my work while planning your escape route through marriage. And when I finally tried to have something just for me, my wedding day, you couldn't even let me have that without making it about your needs. Trevor was watching this family implosion with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for car accidents. Jenna looked like she wanted to disappear entirely. Trevor, I said, turning to him, why are you still here? Your engagement is over. Why haven't you just left? He looked uncomfortable. Because my parents sent me back here to deliver a message. What message? They want Madison to return all the engagement gifts immediately. They also want assurance that the family won't use their name or their son's name in any future social climbing attempts. And they wanted me to tell Emma that they're sorry for any role they played in your family missing your wedding. They're sorry? Mom said, hope creeping into her voice. Does that mean they might reconsider? Trevor's expression was firm. No, Mrs. Patterson. It means they recognize that their engagement party date indirectly contributed to a family crisis, and they feel bad about that. But the engagement is over, permanently. Madison sank back onto the couch, the fight going out of her as the reality of her situation finally hit. No more Trevor, no more wealthy in-laws, no more escape route from the family's financial problems. "What happens now?" Dad asked quietly. It was a good question. Without Madison's marriage prospects and without my continued financial support, because there was no way I was continuing to fund this dysfunction, my family was looking at some serious reckonings. "Now you figure out how to live within your means," David said before I could respond. "You stop expecting Emma to sacrifice her happiness and financial security for your poor decisions, and you start taking responsibility for your own lives." "That's easy for you to say," Mom snapped, some of her desperation turning to anger. "You don't know what it's like to struggle, to have bills piling up and no way to pay them." "You're right," David said calmly. "I don't know what that's like, but I do know what it's like to work hard for what you have and not expect other people to bail you out when you make bad choices." "Bad choices?" Dad's voice was getting louder. "You think I chose for my business to fail? You think I wanted to lose everything I'd worked for?" "No," I said, finding my voice again. "But you chose to hide the truth from me. You chose to let me believe I was helping with Madison's education and opportunities when really I was keeping the entire family afloat. You chose to guilt me into giving you money by making me feel like a bad daughter if I didn't help." "We never asked you to sacrifice your own happiness," Mom protested. "You asked me to change my wedding date so Madison could have her engagement party." "That's different." "How?" Mom opened and closed her mouth several times, but no answer came out. Jenna finally spoke up from her corner. "Emma, I need to tell you something." Everyone turned to look at her, and she looked absolutely miserable. "I didn't go to Madison's engagement party because I wanted to. Madison told me that if I went to your wedding instead of her party, she would never speak to me again. She said I had to choose sides, and that choosing you meant I was choosing against the family." Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "She threatened our friendship if you came to my wedding. She said that you'd understand because you always understand, but that she needed people in her corner for this important moment. She made it sound like going to your wedding would be betraying her when she needed support most." "And you believed her." Jenna's eyes filled with tears. I was confused. Madison was so convincing, and your family was all talking about how important this engagement was for her future. I thought maybe I could make it to both events, but then the timing didn't work out, and I felt like I had to choose. "So you chose Madison." "I chose wrong," Jenna said quietly. "I've been sitting here all night watching your family blame you for everything that went wrong, and I realize I've been part of the problem. Emma, I'm so sorry. You deserved to have your best friend at your wedding, and I let Madison manipulate me into abandoning you." The apology felt too little, too late, but it also felt genuine. Jenna looked genuinely horrified by what she'd witnessed tonight. "The thing is," I said, looking around the room at my family, "I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done." "Done with what?" Madison asked. "Done being the family ATM. Done sacrificing my happiness for your convenience. Done feeling guilty for having boundaries. Done pretending this is what a healthy family looks like." "Emma, you can't just abandon your family," Mom said desperately. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing to invest my time, energy, and money in relationships that are reciprocal, in people who show up for me the way I've shown up for you." "But we're family," Dad said. "Family doesn't just walk away." "Family shows up," I replied. "Family celebrates your important moments. Family doesn't ask you to sacrifice your happiness for their convenience. Family doesn't use you until you're empty and then blame you for not giving more." "So what? You're just going to cut us off?" Madison's voice was getting shrill again. "You're going to let us lose everything because you're mad about one wedding? Madison, this isn't about one wedding. This is about 10 years of treating me like a bank account with legs. This is about expecting me to fund your lifestyle while planning your escape through marriage. This is about asking me to change my wedding date and then being angry when I wouldn't. We needed your help." And I gave it. For 10 years, I gave it. I worked multiple jobs. I lived below my means. I sacrificed relationships and opportunities and experiences so that you could maintain a lifestyle you couldn't afford. And not once Did any of you ask me what I needed or what I wanted?" The truth of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Because it was true. In 10 years of financial emergencies and family crises, no one had ever asked me if I was okay, if I was happy, if I had dreams and goals that mattered too. "I never asked you to do that," Madison said, but her voice was smaller now. "You didn't have to ask. You just expected it. All of you did, and I gave it because I thought that's what love looked like. I thought that's what family meant." "It is what family means," Mom said desperately. "No, Mom. What family means is that it goes both ways. What family means is that when I get married, you show up. What family means is that my happiness matters too." David squeezed my hand, and I realized that for the first time in my adult life, I felt free. Free from the guilt, free from the obligation, free from the endless cycle of giving and giving until there was nothing left. "I'm not cutting you off," I said finally. "But I'm not funding this dysfunction anymore. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be based on mutual respect and genuine care. It can't be based on what I can provide financially." "And if we can't pay our bills?" Dad asked. "Then you'll figure it out the way millions of other people do. You'll downsize, you'll get second jobs, you'll live within your means, you'll stop expecting other people to solve your problems." Madison was crying again, but these tears seemed different. Less manipulative, more genuinely defeated. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't mean for it to be like this." "I know you didn't," I said, and I meant it. "But Madison, you can't build your life on lies and expect it to work out. You can't use other people indefinitely and expect them to keep giving." "What am I supposed to do now?" It was the first time I'd ever heard Madison ask a question that didn't sound like she already knew the answer would involve someone else solving her problems. "Now you figure out who you really are when you're not pretending to be someone else. You figure out what you actually want when it's not based on social status or money. You grow up." Trevor had been quiet during this family reckoning, but now he stepped forward. "I should go," he said. "Madison, I'll need those gifts returned by the end of the week, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't contact me again." Madison nodded numbly, and Trevor headed for the door. He paused when he reached David and me. "Emma, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. And I'm sorry your wedding day got caught up in all this drama." After Trevor left, the house felt even quieter. My family was still sitting there, processing the wreckage of their plans and expectations. "I should probably go too," Jenna said quietly. "Emma, could I maybe call you tomorrow? I'd like to talk if you're willing." I nodded. Jenna had made a mistake, but she'd also recognized it and apologized. That was more than I could say for my blood relatives. David and I were almost to the door when Mom called out, "Emma, wait, please. What do we do now? How do we fix this?" I turned back to look at her, this woman who had raised me but never really seen me, who had taught me that my value lay in what I could provide, rather than who I was. "You start by taking responsibility for your own choices," I said. "You stop blaming other people for your problems. And maybe, someday, you learn to see me as a daughter instead of a solution." We left them there, sitting in their living room surrounded by the debris of Madison's failed engagement and their failed expectations. As David and I drove back to our reception, which was probably still going on without us, I felt lighter than I had in years. "Are you okay?" David asked as we pulled into the botanical garden parking lot. "You know what? I think I am. For the first time in a very long time, I think I actually am." Our wedding guests were still there, still celebrating, and they welcomed us back with cheers and questions about whether everything was all right. David's mother hugged me tightly and whispered, "Whatever it was, you handled it with grace. Now let's get back to celebrating your marriage." And that's exactly what we did. We danced and laughed and celebrated the beginning of our life together, surrounded by people who had chosen to be there for us, people who showed up. It was the perfect end to a day that had started with empty chairs and ended with a full heart.